I'll just give you a quick background about myself. I'm an Iowa farm kid, grew up on a small farm in northwest Iowa, and we had, I can still think of the 20 crate farrowing room, and we had batches of sows, and so I won't even begin to tell you how old I am, but I remember in 1983 I actually graduated from vet school. So I've been around a while, seen a lot, and I still remember like the vet coming out to our farm, and we had farmers hybrid animals, back then, and so it's like they didn't die. And so we had a dead one, and he came out and posted it, and it's like, still remember him. It's like, I want to be that guy someday. And so I went to vet school at Iowa State, and left vet school and joined a mixed animal practice up in southwest Minnesota, and we did everything. We did dogs and cats and horses and beef feedlot and swine. And it was a great learning experience for me, which I would never want to take away. I enjoyed that a lot. And I tell people I learned just as much about people and personalities during those years as I did about, pigs. And some of my best vet stories ever are from those first years of practice, working out with very unique people out in the country. But about the mid-90s, I realized that the business was changing, and I was doing a lot of swine at the time, and I was either going to do swine or I wasn't going to do swine. And so in the mid-90s, I decided to join the Swine Vet Center and join a group of people that's all they do. And so from that point on, that's all I did. Mid-90s on, we just do 100% swine, and that's where I am today. So that's kind of a brief history of my background. And what I want to talk to you guys tonight about is, yes, we're here to talk about ileitis and that whole group of oral vaccines that we use a lot in our practice and with our clients. But I wanted to make sure that I explain to you guys how that fits into our changing world of how we view things out of the country. What people are demanding and how the fit kind of occurs back and forth across that line. So first of all, it's like we all have the same goals. I mean, it's like we really, really want awesome pig production out there. I mean, we all do. That's what we strive for. And you think about our group of clients, our best clients, and then you think about the leader of those groups that really drove those companies forward and expanded them like they did, and they were all pig guys. I mean, they were all pig guys with really, really firm goals on, I want to be the best in pig production. And obviously those we all know those numbers, and we could sit here and we could list 20 other numbers. You know what I mean? Feed cost per pound of gain, space utilization, blah blah blah, on and on. All these production metrics that we want to be the best. But now as we move forward, I would say the status of some of those metrics are changing. Some are much more important than they used to be. And clearly in the world that we stand today, we want to say we're going to be much more in this camp right here about prevention than we are ever going to be about treatment. We want to make sure that we know we're moving into a world where we're going to be scored on antibiotic use, right? And for me, I'm very fearful that, it's scored in the right way, because I think about this as, okay, here's this group of veterinarians in the United States, and Mike Eisenmenger used this many grams of antibiotic. And it's just like, yeah, but that's because we see a whole lot of pigs. And, it's like, I don't want to be on their bad list, and so I think we need to make sure that we work closely on how that's scored. But regardless, if we're going to focus on antibiotic and we know we're going to be scored, our goal is to use less. I think there's little doubt about that. And really, I mean, the list is changing too. It's like, we want to brag about cost per pound of gain, or we want to talk about how fast our pigs are growing. I do think that we want to make sure that we can brag about, we have an awesome place for our employees to work. It's bright, it's clean, they like coming to work every day. You drive by the site and it's mowed up, there's no junk laying around, and they look awesome. And so as we move forward, some of those metrics are going to be just as important as how fast our pigs grew. And some of those metrics may continue to give us the ability to say, you get to continue to sell pork and you don't get that right anymore. So what's our goal? Really, our goal is truly we want to use less antibiotics. Don't kid yourself. I mean, we really honestly want to do that. And if you talk to the people in the industry, we want a really easy pig to raise, right? We want it to be we want it to not, we don't want to give antibiotic injections. Our goal shouldn't be, like, how many injections did you give the other day? It's like, less is better, right? Less is better. And, you know, how much work did you have to do in the barn yesterday? Well, I didn't have to do very much. I walked in, I seen this one pig over here I put in the hospital pen, and they had feed and they had water and the environment was good. I was good. Didn't take very long to do chores. Yeah, that's our goal. Absolutely. And, you know, we want the people in the barns to be happy, right? And part of that is going to be, you know, the health of the pig, and part of that is going to be the pig itself. And so I think that we recognize that there are certain kinds of pigs that are more difficult to raise and certain pigs that aren't. And so it's that balance between this pig is just awesome. It converts feed at, you know, 2.3 pounds. It grows like crazy. But it's a bear cat to keep on the road. It's like, I want a pig that grows well, converts well, easy to care for, doesn't get that sick. And we got to balance those two things together as we move forward. So how are we going to get that done? So I think, you know, how I look at this is, first of all, we got to get a really high health pig. And I mean, that's part of what I do every day. That's part of what we do every day, is that we are going to get rid of diseases that should not be there in the first place. And this is my short list, really. Mycoplasma pneumoniae, can't live with it. And so we've spent countless hours with our clients eliminating that pathogen from their herds. And honestly, if you look at our group of clients, which we'll talk about later, they've been extremely effective at that. And in fact, if you had to say what is the average, it's well over half, probably well over 75% that are Mycoplasma pneumoniae negative today. And some companies can probably brag that they're 100%. PRRS, we're really good at making PRRS negative pigs from a sow farm nowadays. And so that's a disease that we should not get. Now, you know, what have we learned in the last 5 years is we put a lot of our sow farms under filtration. That's just how we do it. That's part of it. Really focus on biosecurity. That's another part of it. And in general, we make most of the weaned pigs are PRRS negative. Keeping them that way is going to be another thing. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. And then lastly, APP. I can't think of one of our herds that has APP. We're putting some gilts into a multiplier, and they're going through an APP eradication so they can get in right now. I mean, that's just a disease we're not going to tolerate. Really focused what we talked about on biosecurity. It's like, if we don't have it, we don't want to get it back in. So we focus our sow farms on filtration. And really, you know, in the old days, if you think about these sow farms, you could kind of go in and out every door you choose. Nowadays, you don't. You go in this door, everything moves through this door. It's way, way more biosecure. It's kind of actually fun to go out and see that, how they've been retooled. And same thing at grow finish. What we don't have, we don't want. And so think about that. Think of the kind of the buildings that we're building today. In the past, we used to build buildings that were like, let's say there's 4 buildings in a row. And to get from one building to the next, you have to walk in and out and walk around the outside, back in this one, back in out. And it's like, we don't do that anymore. We try to build one building, has an attached office. You come through there, you shower in, you go into that building. You could spend the day in there and go back out again. So we're real sure we don't, you know, get something in that doesn't belong there. How we handle mortality, you know what I mean, right? Keeping us away from other dead pigs, other companies' dead pigs, other producers' dead pigs. And so, you know, either composting or how to get them to the correct location for something to pick up is really important. I'm old enough that I remember back in the day, we used to go in and out of pig barns. Let's kind of willy-nilly, you just drive up to the barn, put on a pair of boots, go in. And the guy doing chores, he just came from wherever and did chores. Well, those days are long gone. Most all the finishing barns are shower in, shower out. You clean up before you leave. You clean up before you go to the next site. And I guess that's one thing, you know, and I think back to the early days, it's like when I used to do a lot of grow finish work and I come home at the end of the day, my wife wouldn't let me in the front door. And it's like, God forbid, throw those clothes in her washing machine. It's like that was out. And so nowadays I come home and I smell like this. It's great. That's the way it should be. We're much more professional in what we do today, no doubt about it. Any questions so far? Good to go? Okay, so the next thing then, how do we accomplish all those things, is like we have to develop vaccine programs that work much stronger on prevention than treatment. And so what does a robust vaccination program look like? I think, first of all, we look at the diseases that we have not really done a very good job of eliminating in the grow finish world. Because, it's like we get what we got. And I think the other striking piece of advice or things that I've learned through the years is when you look at nursery grow finish, we used to worry about in the old days what we got from the neighbors and the neighborhood. Most of what we got came from the sow farm. And so if we focus on the sow farm, we really clean things up downstream. And so you look at these, right? Salmonella typhimurium, most groups have. E. coli, depends on which flow you're in, they got. Ileitis, almost every flow we see has, not been able to get rid of. Circovirus, it's endemic, we just vaccinate. Erysipelas, same thing. I've lived long enough that I've lived through those erysipelas years when we didn't think we needed to vaccinate and we got smoked. Those days are over. In our part of the country, erysipelas is in the soil. It's never going to go away. We're going to vaccinate for as long as I live. Now, PRRS is on my list here, too. It's like, wait a minute, it was on my other list, the one we got rid of. Well, we can get rid of it, but that is one disease out in grow finish that tends to be a bit lateral. That if we put negative pigs out there, there's probably about a 1/3 to a 50% chance they're going to get infected from living in that geography. And so we said, done. If you're going to be clean, we're going to vaccinate you, and we're preparing you for what you see out there. And then we call our small bugs. There are certain flows that we just need to vaccinate for some of those small bugs.
Question.
Yo.
So 5 years ago, would you have had salmonella in there, or as high?
Actually, salmonella. This salmonella right here has been a problem for a lot of our clients for a while. It's like it's just always there. Now, is it there causing massive death loss? No, it's just this nagging problem in the background, and it's like, here comes a set of wean pigs, we're trying to get them started on feed, and they get diarrhea. So what do? Let's break out the neomycin or the gentamicin and get them treated, and we're saying, that shouldn't be the way it is. Let's just see if we can figure out how to make that go away versus another antibiotic treatment. Cholera suis, that was a problem 10 years ago, and we started vaccinating almost every pig we see for that 10 years ago, and that pathogen is, should I say gone? But I can't remember the last time I've diagnosed Salmonella cholera suis, actually. So great sign anyway, though. Yeah, so those are, you're right, though, but those are ones that I just don't see us eliminating. So we're going to control them, prevent them. So what does a typical vaccination program look for a lot of our clients, okay? So we're in the mode of let's prevent it so we don't have to treat it later. I would say in general, my strong preference is to get pigs injectably vaccinated. If I have to inject a pig with a vaccine, I want to do it in the farrowing house. Why do I want to do it in the farrowing house? Because I can have a group effort where I walk into that farrowing house, there'll be 2 or 3 people around that farrowing crate, they're picking up pigs under the sternum, they're holding them, they're giving them an injection in their neck, and they're setting them back in the farrowing crate. Them vaccines are expensive, and I know it gets administered almost 100%. Now, if you've ever been out in a nursery barn, and we're going to crowd these pigs to one end of the pen, and there might be 50 pigs in that pen, and we're going to get them vaccinated, and they're squealing and jumping, and it's just like, I'm not that coordinated. I mean, it's amazing how some people do it, but I can't get it done. I mean, I'd be there all day, plus I got a bad back, I'd quit. Tomorrow, one day I'd quit. And so if we can get those done in the farrowing house, I feel really good about that. So we're going to give Circoflex, Mycoflex, and really it doesn't matter if 100% of the pigs are myconegative, we are going to vaccinate them for mycoplasma. Very small cost. If it goes bad out in grow finish, we do not want to not be vaccinated. So we continue to vaccinate all our myconegative pigs with Mycoflex. And then this vaccine right here, knowing that maybe half the pigs are going to see it out there, we go ahead and give that in anticipation of a problem in the finisher. And we're either going to give that on the sow farm, or that's one vaccine we may have to transfer back down if the sow farm itself is not getting vaccinated. So most of the time that's incorporated in with this one and is just done before they leave the sow farm. And then those small bugs on some flows we have to vaccinate. Once again, we want to get that done, that processing and wean, get that done in the farrowing house.
Excuse me.
Is that also less of a stressor doing it at that point versus waiting until, like you said, you're cornering them in and trying to get them all and they're squealing?
100%. Way, way less stress. And in fact, most farms, most of the farms, they kind of wean on a Monday, Thursday, or a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or some big farms, they wean every day of the week. But we like to get that done 2 to 3 days prior to the wean event. And so they're vaccinated. Even if there's a little bit of stress of being picked up and vaccinate, set them back down. When we're going to load them the next day or the day after that, they load easier, they feel better, they're normal again. And then once we get them out into the nursery, now they're going to get their oral vaccines. Okay, we're going to give them their E. coli's if they need it. This is where they're going to get their salmonella. We like to do that as soon as we can after placement. And then we open up a non-antibiotic ration out either in mid-nursery or late nursery, and then we give them their enterosol ileitis back there.
I got a quick question. So
Sure.
when you talked about that in your flows or in the systems that you help, ileitis was an issue. Is that clinical that you're seeing those signs, or you identified that, or was it subclinical? Because I think that's an interesting point that some people maybe don't think that ileitis is as prevalent as it.
And I mean, I kind of generalize this talk around 5 of our larger clients, and we'll get into that. But 2 of those, for sure, if you don't have a treatment program in place, you will almost be guaranteed to see clinical ileitis and late finishing on every group. I mean, it's like, God, it shouldn't be that way, but it is. And then on the other ones, it's more sporadic. If you don't have a treatment and control program, you probably are going to see it, or you could see it. And then I can think of another one that it must be the exposure or dose that they leave the sow farm. You go into a finishing barn, and if they're not under a control program, you go down into the hospital pen and you get some of these thin Gant pigs and you post them, and you'll see clinical signs of chronic ileitis early on. And so different levels of exposure, different ages of exposure, but none of our clients would be ileitis negative, no. So we'll kind of use ileitis as an example of kind of what we talked about ahead of that. It's like, how do we really try to get to the point where we're using less antibiotics and make our pigs healthier and happier? So just what we said, in the systems that I'm going to talk about, it's like we really don't have a choice. We have to manage and try to prevent ileitis. And unfortunately, most of the losses for us with ileitis is going to be the back end. And to me, that's when it's like you're all in. All your costs are into that pig. All you have to do is hire a truck and get it to town, and you got all that back, but it's gone right at the end. So, a lot of places look at what is your cost of mortality. Well, your cost of mortality of a nursery pig is clearly different than your cost of a finishing pig that's ready to step on the truck. And ileitis is one of those last thing on the truck, last pigs to die.
So at corn at $3.50 versus $7 changes the cost of diet. So does that change how producers are really looking at that?
No, because even on corn at $3.50, if you look at your all-in cost at the end, it's still a really, really expensive cost. Now, when it's $7, it's like, don't kid yourself, right? It's like they even got better at adjusting feeders, Or you could argue it's like we even got better at applying ileitis vaccine. But even in a market like we're in right now, them late deads you just cannot afford to have. And another similar type dead would be like a DOA, a transit dead. Can't have those deads. So just kind of want to tell you what made up this talk, okay? So in the Swine Vet Center, we got a group of clients, and that's where this talk is really based on, and they're all mainly in the upper Midwest. Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, South Dakota, Illinois. But there's about 350,000 sows there making a boatload of finishing pigs. And so it's not like, do you have an ileitis problem, this 100 sow herd out here? It's like, no, it's kind of like everywhere, and it's in large systems. And so it's a really big deal to get right, is my point. And we talked about this. What do they do well? Well, they're really good at making PRRS-negative pigs. And they've made most of their sow farms mycoplasma negative, so that feels good. But once we get below this line, there's clearly differences in how they run their companies, okay? Some are straight line flow, which means I have this 5,000 sow farm, all the pigs from that farm go to a flow. They go down through a nursery or set of finishers, and that's all the nursery and finishers see is that one flow of pigs. Downside to that, on some of those smaller flows, it's hard to completely empty all of the pigs out before the next pigs come back in, so we run some continuous flow sites. The other ones still say, hey, I've got PRRS negative pigs, they're myco negative pigs, they're dang near the same health status. I'm going to put farm 1, 2, 3, 4 together, and I'm going to have my nursery site that fills in a day and my finishing site that fills in a day. And so it's hard for me to say that one is right and one is wrong. Both of them work. It's just kind of what your philosophy is and how much alike you can make your sow farms. And there's some things behind that too. But both of them work really well. That's just the way they run their business. So what drove these companies to decide that they needed to do something for ileitis? Okay, and it's really this one right here. Because in late finishing, right at marketing time, I'm going to get bloody diarrhea and I am going to have dead pigs. And there is nothing more depressing than that to happen, right? And so if you think about this for a second, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to control ileitis, right? And we'll get into some of those strategies a little later. There's medication, there's vaccination, okay? And, you know, we had a situation in our practice where we had a lot of our clients on vaccine. And, you know, as with any program, it's like, yeah, should I be vaccinating? Should I be medicating? Which one's more cost effective? And then we had a vaccine shortage, and we actually couldn't get vaccine. And so a lot of those clients had no choice but to roll over to a medication program. And it was an eye-opening experience for a lot of our clients. And it's just like, this is way tougher than I thought. And so as soon as vaccine came back on the market, they went back on the program. But it's not atypical, right? So what will you see if that happens? We'll get right at the end, you'll get 1, maybe even 2% mortality right before they're going to go out the door. You put a lot of expensive drugs into them right at the end, which easily, this is a conservative number, of adding another buck ahead in medication. And then really, then it's just like the people things, right? It's like, I have all these trucks lined up. Now I got the site that just broke. They can't go to town. I got to get them on meds, reroute the trucking. And I mean, in these companies of some size, it's like, I don't even think I understand what a nightmare that is sometimes. You know, it's like you got to call up and reshuffle, and then that reshuffle causes 10 reshuffles, and those 10 reshuffles cause 20 reshuffles. And it's just like, it's like exponential growth through the system. And that's, you want to get a lot of ticked off people on a Friday afternoon, just do that once. It seems like everything happens on a Friday afternoon too, right? It's like, what is the deal? Every disease outbreak, every transportation screw up, everything happens on a Friday afternoon or the day before a holiday. Guaranteed. It is a marketing nightmare. So number one, it drives this antibiotic use right when we're marketing pigs, right? And if you ever want to not like sleep well at night, it's like put a bunch of antibiotics in pigs just before they're going to go to market and hope that everybody is getting that right every day out there. You know, because we can't afford a screw up. We can't have that black in our name, and so that's a really big deal. There's 2 events that really just scare the crap out of me. One of these is this late ileitis, and you have a break, and you got to medicate pigs just so they're going to town. And the other one is, like on these smaller sites, we'll have this barn at one end with market pigs, and this end it has younger pigs, and the medicators in the office. And so all the knobs that tell which barn gets antibiotic are controlled from the office. And so, I mean, I've been out there with duct tape making sure that this one does not open ever. So, yeah. And obviously the pig size. We got big pigs there at the end. They require a lot of antibiotics, and we'll get into that. And so, just like this, it's a marketing nightmare. We gotta get these pigs treated, but they're near marketing, and so it's the worst time. We still got to get them on a truck someday. And you know, some of the things that we talk about is like we got these antibiotics, but they have a withdrawal, right? And we have to live by the withdrawal. And if you look at this withdrawal here that I put in the chart, I've got 3 days on water Thailand, or 3 days on Linco, 2 days in Thailand. I've got 4 days on Linco injection. I got 3 days on Avicin in the water. I've got Thailand injection if I decide to use that, which obviously I never would, right? 28 days. And you're going to yourself, well, Them aren't the withdrawals that I remember. I'm used to looking at either U.S. withdrawals or export withdrawals, and none of them match. But really, when you sell pigs to the packer, he has the trump card. And so if he says, I know what the withdrawal is in the U.S., or I know what the Japanese MRL is, and I don't really care, that's your withdrawal. That's what we do. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're in charge. And so we can argue all I want, but it's like, I want to be able to sell pigs to you, so you will tell us what the withdrawal will be. And so our withdrawals, especially for this packer right here, are extended. That's just the way it is. And so we live by these withdrawals. So we want to get these pigs treated. We got to get them back off antibiotic, and we know that it seems like on these late breaks, if they're off antibiotics for 4 to 7 days, they re-break. And so it's like you're always riding that line. I'm done treating. I want to get them marketed. Oh, shoot, they rebroke. I got to get them back on. And it's just like, no, I don't want to live in that world. I just want to get away from that. So what does it take to actually get out and get that done? Okay, and so here is just a 1,000 head finisher. Just like a simple example. You know, they're 250, 280 pounds, going to market. And it's like, well, how much antibiotic, if I'm going to be measured in antibiotic use, how much am I using if I don't prevent the disease and have to fight an outbreak? Well, just from an injectable standpoint, I'll easily use 250 grams of Linco a day. Okay, that's just real. Now I'm going to put them on water, and I'm going to add over 3,000 grams of Linco, or 2,500 grams of Tylan, or 4,000 grams of Avlicin to that set of pigs. It's like, ooh. Gosh, I don't want to do that. That's on my scorecard again, you know? And so between medication costs and production loss and mortality and increased labor and, you know, withdrawal concerns and really unhappy people in the barn, never underestimate that one at all, you know? They're unhappy when you show up. Transportation changes on and on and on. It's just like, no, we got to make sure that we have a strategy that we can absolutely prevent this, that we don't have to get in a situation like this. And so you could say, well, like when the vaccine was in shortage, we'll just put on a feed med program. So what we did, first of all, is we said, well, let's just figure this out. If we treat him for 3 weeks here, and then we'll kind of let him kind of get exposed again, build up some immunity, and then we'll knock it down at just the right time again, and we'll get him off to market. Those were our pulse programs. And it's just like, I've seen every pulse program ever invented by a veterinarian, and I can't make any of them work. It's like, maybe I'm not smart enough, I don't know, but we tried to do it on less drugs, but we just had it timed wrong. Or we just say, screw it, we're going to put them on feed grades until they go to market, and that's a problem, right? In today's world, that could be a potential problem. We're going to use a lot of antibiotics. If you are measured in how much antibiotics you use, the vast majority of your grams per head marketed will come from feed grade programs, right? No doubt about it. And so we're going to be very, very in tune with those programs. And if we have to do it, we have to do it. But if we don't have to do it, we probably shouldn't be doing it. So just what we talked about. Continuous, it's expensive, we use a lot, and we end up here basically without vaccine because of timing issues. Pulse medications, hard to figure out the right time, use less drugs, not very effective. So what do we end up? We ended up we're going to vaccinate them. It's reliable, it's predictable, it's really easy to do. So what really is that, like if you go out into a barn and you, in our systems today, and you have a break of ileitis in late finishing, the first response of that grow finish supervisor is, they didn't get vaccinated in the nursery, did they, Doc? It's like, or who messed up the vaccine program, you know? And honestly, it really is interesting. You go back and trace that back, and it's not uncommon. The last one that just happened was like, you know, that came from nursery X, and I happened to be out there that day, and they were administering vaccine, and it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And well, if you figure out when pigs drink, right, you know, and we got to have this vaccine consumed in 6 hours, they were like bedding down for the night, and they didn't drink it right. And so there's usually a reason why we have vaccine failures. The guys are smart enough now to not say, what's wrong with BI's vaccine? You know, it's like they don't even go there. Real honestly, it's just like, okay, somebody messed up. And, you know, really what's been the outcome? We've used less antibiotic, no doubt about it. I don't have that concern. I've made better pigs. I'm happier, they're happier. Oh, it's my last slide. So, I mean, that's really the story of how we ended up where we did. So it's all about prevention. It's all really about ease of application. I mean, the more oral vaccines we can have, I think the better off life will be. It's an easy thing to administer. There are some tricks around it, but, you know, it's easy today in the fact that we can put those pigs in the nursery and we can have a pail of medicated water and we can put 1, 2, or 3 things in that pail and have them drink that the same day. There are some tools which we actually worked with BI on how to get the vaccine administered in a 6-hour period without pre-measuring the water the day before. So there's some tools that are refining the simplicity or ease of administering those vaccines. And I don't see the industry changing, and I don't see our practice changing on that philosophy, especially as we're moving down the road towards the end of 2016, when all the VFDs and all the scripts things for injectable and oral antibiotics is going to be fully in place.